How's your production on Pasture? Are profits down? Are weight gains down? What are you going to do about it? Do something cost-effective. Do something that will make a difference. To add the first and proven leader in feed-through hornfly control to your cattle rations, ask for it by name, Alticid IGR.
Your land is more than a business. It's a heritage that has been passed down from those who tended it before you, by those who shaped it, changed it, and cared for it. Your land has a legacy, one that you carry on, but also one you build on. At Corteva Agriscience, we are the stewards of a lasting legacy. We have a responsibility to Dow AgroSciences, to maintain the relationships and trust they built, and to build upon those foundations, to help you care for your land, to provide innovations that help you protect the hard work and investment you've poured into it, to help you build a legacy that can be passed on for generations to come. Corteva Agriscience.
Ranching is passed down from generation to generation. Know what else gets passed down? The world's finest ranch and rodeo equipment, manufactured by WW Livestock Systems. Ranchers demand quality, and they have come to depend on WW equipment to fulfill their needs, large or small. We invite you to consider WW, made in America, available coast to coast. WW Livestock Systems, the world's finest since 1945.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us back here at our producer's studios on this fine, cool morning as we continue with our Expo webinar series. This particular hour is going to be brought to you by Mr. Rob Brooks, Bear Range and Pasture Rep. We're going to be looking at some range and pasture herbicide innovations from Bayer. Rob will be discussing new products from Bayer that will help you improve the productivity of your rangeland and pasture. These exciting new products include Invora herbicide for brush and Resilon pre-emergent herbicide for pastures and hayfields. So again, thank you for joining us. It's our second webinar of the day. We're going to have one more coming up today, 2 tomorrow. So, please check back with us and participate in these webinars, get some useful information, and as a follow-up to them, if you have any additional questions about anything in the webinars, come on in and see us, and we'll help you as good as we can. If not, we'll reach out to the individuals who presented during our webinar series and get the answers directly from them. So we sure appreciate you joining us, Rob. We're going to throw it over to you, and we'll make sure we make the transition properly. We're going to get his presentation pulled up. And I'm going to step out of the way. It looks like it's loaded.
All right. Well, I sure appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning, and thanks. Got a lot of exciting things going on at Bear Range and Pasture this year with the introduction of a couple of brand new herbicides that we're really excited to roll out to you. I understand from some of the previous webinars that there's been a little discussion around Invora already from Dr. Scott Nolte, and then a little bit about picolinic acid training from Dr. Megan Clayton, and we sure thank them for that as well. So we're going to go ahead and just dive right into this because we've got a lot of information to share with you. And again, thank you for those that have chosen to attend with us today, or those that will be watching the recorded version later on. Well, let's see if we can get this thing moving on. Anybody able to help me out here?
You may just have to exit that presentation and then reshare it again. And if that doesn't work, you can always do it in one of the other modes.
All righty.
And just look for that presentation under the screen sharing once you get your PowerPoint up and running the way you like it.
Well, I can't seem to get back to the screen sharing portion of it again with Zoom.
Looks like we're good on our end. We've got you able to share. In the way over here as well.
Well, my apologies if this thing is not wanting to cooperate this morning.
We're going to look and see if we have the presentation of yours on our end, and then we can share it.
That would be fantastic. Thank you. Did that pop back up again?
We see your presentation up on the screen now.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see if we can make this one work then. All right. So as we get into it, if this thing will advance for me. There we go.
It's just a little slow, but it is advanced.
All right. So I want to start by introducing our range and hatch team. Okay. So begin with, Mr. Brian Kane is our business manager for the eastern and southern region of the United States, followed by Mr. Gerald Hobson, who many folks know and has been around for quite a while. I was the newest addition to this team back in January. And of course, many of you that have been around are very familiar with Dr. Wayne Hanselka and Dr. Alan McGinney, who are technical consultants for us currently, and former professors with the A&M AgriLife Extension Service. Followed by that, at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen is Dr. Case Medlin, who is our regional stewardship manager and was very instrumental in getting this product launched for us. All right, so we'll go ahead and get into Envora here. So Envora is a patent-protected combination of aminocyclopyriflor, which is a brand new chemistry to the range and pasture business, in the form of a TEA salt, along with another active ingredient that many of you are very familiar with.
Rob, we're going to have to get you to unmute yourself. Points rolling through. Just transitions are slow, but we've lost your audio. But we're working to get Rob back up and running. We're going to try to do all we can from our computers. So stay with us briefly. Apologize for the delay in the presentation. Oh, we see you trying, Rob, but if that presentation mode there will work and we can get your audio back up, then we might have a show. As always, if we weren't doing anything, we wouldn't have problems. But if you're doing something, you're going to run into
Okay.
a problem every time. And we're working hard to adjust to COVID and everything it's thrown at us. So unfortunately, this is one of the drawbacks is
Can you hear me?
sometimes the internet doesn't want to comply. I think we hear you, Rob. Go ahead.
Okay. So what are you seeing from a screen standpoint right
We just hear you. If you've got your PowerPoint, just want to talk like you're presenting it. I know that you won't have the imagery, but we can hear your audio at the moment. At least we can get some information out there if you're good with that.
now? Let's see if I can get the screen back up. How's that?
It says that you started sharing, and if you want to go with that mode, that's fine. I know you'll just have to roll through it.
Okay, well, it appears that y'all can hear me again, and maybe there's a screen back up currently.
We got audio, we got a screen that's going to work for what we want to do today, so I think we're good. I'm going to back off my mic.
Okay, all right, so as we go on talking about Invora, we were talking about stewardship information. So prior to spraying Invora herbicide, some of these criteria must be followed. So in addition to having your TDA applicator's license, there is a requirement that if you are actually doing the application, that you have to go take some picolinic acid chemistry training. This is a mandate from EPA that was new to the range and pasture business. It's something that we've seen in crops coming up more and more here recently with both dicamba, some glyphosate training, as well as some paraquat training. But this is something new to the range and pasture business, and that Dr. Clayton presented some of this yesterday. So you may be familiar with that if you were able to get onto that webinar. So again, just like some of the products that you've seen previously, you probably will see this little pictogram on the back of the label, which helps describe the appropriate uses for the product, as well as the places that it's not safe to use it, such as in hay pastures and areas like that. So it's a good review of the label. Again, you are only required to take this if you are actually making the application. If you are hiring someone like producers to custom apply this for you, then they are required to take that picolinic acid chemistry training. But it's a great idea for anybody that's going to be managing and stewarding their land to understand about the residual effects of picolinic acid chemistry and be prepared to manage and mitigate for that. So a little more on application and use. Invora can be used in a number of different ways, which makes it very, very flexible. It can be used both as a broadcast and for individual plant treatment applications on privately owned non-hayed rangeland and perennial grassland managed as rangeland. So that's a long way of saying that it can be used in pastures and rangelands as long as that grass is only harvested by livestock and not by mechanical means, such as hay. And it says it right there again, a reminder that Invora herbicide is not for use on hay production sites. The broadcast rate range is, again, very broad, similar to some products that you're probably used to. It allows you to go from 12 ounces all the way up to 48 ounces in a single application. If you're primarily targeting broad spectrum of weeds that you may run into in your area, for honey mesquite and weesacks, we're going to primarily focus in on those right now because that's what the product is currently labeled for and was targeted at. So if you're going after honey mesquite in South or West Texas, or even Central Texas, the standard rates for that are 24 to 36 ounces per acre. Now, 24 ounces is going to probably cover 98 to 99% of the situations that you're going to run across, but you do have the flexibility to increase that rate if you've got some other mixed brush out there, or if you've got some really big or dense thickets of mesquite, then you may elect to increase the rate. Weesatch, which we're in an active Weesatch season right now. We have applications going out almost daily. The rate for Weesatch, and again, just like in mesquite, 36 ounces is probably going to cover 98 to 99% of your applications. But that rate range does allow you some flexibility if you feel the need to go up and rate some. Now, as we get into far west Texas and Trans-Pecos areas, we start running into western honey mesquite. The rates for it, much like Weesatch, are 36 to 48 fluid ounces. And then when we get out, very low growing and very difficult to control. And so we recommend the full 48 ounce application rate for that species. You can split applications, although we don't feel that it would be necessary. And in that case, you may use up to 54 fluid ounces in a given year. So again, we talk about the flexibility of Envora and the different ways that it can be used. So primarily, we talked about broadcast applications, and that's how most of them are going out currently due to current package sizes. But we do plan on introducing 1 gallon container sizes sometime in 2021, prior to the active brush spraying season. And so that being the case, if you find yourself in need of a product to go in and do some individual plant treatments, Envora is very effective as a foliar leaf spray. 1.5% volume per volume does a phenomenal job. That's a little less than 2 ounces per gallon of water, along with the methylated seed oil organosilicone type surfactant. What's really unique about Envora is the fact that we can also use this aqueous-based solution as a basal stem spray, and that's something that has not been seen in the industry before. Most of the products that you're used to doing basal stem sprays with require about a 25% volume per volume concentration. Can make it a little messy for you to deal with sometimes. You have to have special equipment with Viton seals and special pumps to be able to handle that formulation. But with Envora, you're allowed and able to use 15% of Envora, which comes out to just under, or just over rather, 19 ounces per gallon of water, with this 1% methylated seed oil organosilicone surfactant. And you may go out and do the same type of basal applications that you're used to doing with current products with a much neater, cleaner solution, being that it can go out in water. Now, as with other products that you're used to, once those stems get over about 4 to 6 inches in diameter, we do recommend cutting those off and doing a cut stump spray. And in that case, it's just 8 to 10% of Envora. So we touched on briefly some of the herbaceous weed spectrum. Here's just a brief list of a few that you'll find on the label. Currently, there's only 30 on there, but what's more important to you is the use sites that are on the label, and that's that rangeland and permanent grassland used as rangeland. So even if you don't find the weed that you have on your pasture on the label currently, odds are that Envora is going to do a really good job on it. But more specific to you is just making sure that it's going out in the right place on that rangeland or permanent grasslands. So, but you can see here from the slide that western ragweed, common broomweed, your thistles, horse nettles, dog fennels, doveweed or woolly croton, ironweed, kochia, and mare's tail, which are all very common to Central and South Texas, Envora does a very good job on. As we get into the woody brush spectrum, you see we have over 20 species currently on the label. Most of the broadcast applications are really going to key on the honey mesquite and Weesatch, which are the most problematic in our part of the state. But we do have activity on a lot of other species, and we're currently gathering data to further expand that label and provide more information to you on things that Envora can control. We do have sufficient data on IPT applications for such species like catclaw acacia and mimosa, white brush, black brush, and lime prickly ash, just to name a few. So a little bit more about application timing for key brush species. If you're going out and treating mesquite, it's very similar to things that you've used to been. early, late spring rather, after those things the leaves have fully matured and turned a good dark green, and you have a good healthy stand of leaves, and you can start spraying from a broadcast standpoint or from IPT. We don't recommend currently you going out after those things have bloomed or started seed elongation. But once those leaves are fully, or the seed window of opportunity to go out and spray those things and see really good results. Weesatch, historically, we've always done those kinds of treatments in the fall, starting in late September after we've got some good late summer rains or some early September rains to really freshen those plants up and get them in good shape. We do recommend that the foliage is in really good condition. So here's a little bit on the next slide on Weesatch apparent mortality 2 years after treatment. And that's kind of been the standard that we've looked at for a lot of years, is going back and judging brush treatments at 2 years after application. And you can see across these 4 trial locations that we're edging out the industry standard treatments. And some of these were products that were the standard back prior to 2012. Of course, there was a new product introduced after 2012 that became the standard for mesquite. But there's not really been a real standard for Weesatch. There's been a lot of combination mixes that have been used. You go to different parts of the state and people have different recipes. But Envora has outperformed any of those quote unquote standard treatments on Weesatch. When you look at the far right side of the screen, you can see that apparent mortality is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 15% better than any of the industry standards 2 years after treatment. So I'm going to dive in that just a little bit more and what that means. So when we go into apparent mortality 2 years after treatment, typically when scientists go out and rate these things, they go back at 2 years and they look for green leaves that are on the tree. Or they might get a pocket knife out and cut into the tree and see if there's any green meristematic tissue in there that would indicate that the tree is still alive. If there's nothing indicative of live plant tissue in that tree, then they'll call it dead. And that's where those treatment summaries usually come from. What we did notice though, because it took us quite a while to get this product labeled. Many of you have been seeing it for a number of years and wondering if it was ever going to come to market. And believe me, we wondered that ourselves for a while, but it allowed us the opportunity to go back at both 4, 6, 8, sometimes 10 years after treatment and make further evaluations. Once you get to about 4 years after application on some of these softer wood species, there's no plant left there if it was truly killed to be able to rate. So common sense would tell us if the plant's not there, that it's obviously dead. But from a scientific standpoint, that's not necessarily the case. And so we did a little bit of diving into literature and ways people that had rated things. And what we discovered is that there were a couple of professors, Dr. Seifries and Dr. Ansley, both with A&M AgriLife Extension, had done some extensive work on canopy cover. And they discovered that once canopy cover, particularly with Weesatch in this case, reached a threshold of about 30% canopy cover, and you just didn't have very much there left to graze. So when we started looking at our data a little bit, you see the industry standard, those little triangle pieces, when you rated them at canopy covers 4, 5, or 6 years after treatment, they were starting to reach above that 30% threshold. So that basically means if you're going back and rating Weesatch, somewhere a little after 3 years after application, you need to go back and do something else or you're not going to have any grass. So when we went back and stretched tapes and started measuring canopy covers in the Envora treatments, we were noticing that we were staying below the 10% mark for canopy cover 4, 5, 6 years after treatment. And if you extrapolate that out at the green line at the bottom of the screen, you can see that it possibly could last quite a bit longer than that as well. So the slide that should be building for you right now is some aerial application treatments somewhere around East Bernard, Texas. This was Envora treated plots. You can see a fellow wading through the field out there in about waist-high grass. And in the background, you can see the density and the size of the trees that were there in that application. So this is 4 years after treatment. We've got a whole lot of grass out there. just a couple of trees that actually got skipped. Those were in a line, but we see really good results 4 years after treatment in that case. So a little bit further south, this is down around Sinton area. Here's a 36-ounce application of Envora 5 years after application from an aerial broadcast. And you can see the line there clearly demarking the area that was treated. So as the next slide builds, we got one more slide here of Wasatch application. This is at the higher rate. You can see on either side there, it looks like a pipeline or a sendero that's cut through there. That's the Envora application, just a single swath width that went through there. And 5 years after application, you can see that there's not really even any seedlings coming back. So it's been a phenomenal treatment. We're really excited about it. Especially in the Wasatch market, since there hasn't been anything that's been very effective up to this point. So you ask about mesquite. There's our good friend, Mr. Gerald Hobson, standing in some mesquite in West Texas, 2 years after treatment. And you can see from the slide there that those are some very large mesquite trees. And there's not a single one. The little bit of green that you see back there is a different species. So there is some tolerance to Envora by different species, but the targeting mesquite that we were after, we did a really, really good job of getting those things controlled. Here's that same site 4 years after treatment. And again, like I said, it was just a little bit of a blessing and a curse that we weren't able to get the product labeled sooner. But it was nice to be able to go back and get this kind of data from something that we've never seen before. So here's an application 8 years after treatment. You can see the two yellow lines and the low growing mesquite on either side of that. And then just the clear sendero down through there where the Envora application was made. The two trees that you see back there, the little shrubs that you see in the background is actually lote bush. Which can be beneficial for wildlife. So it's good to have some species that exhibit some tolerance to Envora. So the slide that's building now shows an Envora herbicide application on the left in 2008 and a commercial standard for mesquite also in 2008. And you can see that a year after treatment, they really don't look that much different. In 2 years after treatment, when people typically make those types of ratings, again, you don't see very much difference. The real difference comes up when you start going 4, 6, 8, or 10 years out after application. So here's those same plots in 2017, 10 years after the treatment timing. And you can see the clear line down through there where the Envora was treated. And when the commercial standard, you can see that canopy cover is growing back up and filling back in. And so it's probably time to do something again. So what this really matters to you is that it's a return on investment. If you decide to make the
Oh, Rob, you're doing so good. We lost you for a minute, but I think we're getting you back now. We got you. And we don't have your sound, Rob. We need your sound back. So whatever you did earlier to get yourself back up, if you can do it again, we'd appreciate it. Or maybe you're muted right now. That's what it is. If we get you unmuted. Just need you to unmute yourself, Rob, so we can get you back up and going. Looks like he's gonna back out and try to jump back in to pick up where he left off. His internet's been a little spotty, so that's been the troublesome part. We're trying to keep him connected, but unfortunately, it's on his end. So we'll give him just a few moments to get back up.
All right. So let's roll on here to the next slide. So again, we said that Breslon is a pre-herbicide primarily targeting annual grass weed species. It's labeled for use in established warm season grass pastures and hayfields, primarily Bermuda and Bahia. We don't want to use this on cool season grasses like fescue, which is not really a big issue in our part of the state, but it can be as we go further east and a little further north. So primary weed targets, if you're going after winter weeds, winter annuals like ryegrass, little barley, and other cool season grasses, this is a great product for you. And in the summertime, which is usually the ones that we have the most problems with, things like crabgrass, goosegrass, foxtails,
Hey, Rob, the transitions seem to be what keep bumping you out. You may have to just do it in your working Excel version. I know we'll see your toolbar and everything, but you'll have to scroll through them with your mouse. It won't be in a presentation mode, but should be able to get us to where we can get through. And if you can get yourself unmuted so we can get your audio back, you should be good to go again.
All right, how's that? Still there with me?
I think it should work. We're just checking it here. We can see it and we can hear you. You just have to scroll through them with your mouse, but I think we'll be good.
Well, I apologize for all the technical difficulties we're having on this end. So what I was saying is that this product is really stable. You can put it out there and multiple weeks ahead of when you think you would need it, which is a lot different than current products. And it only takes a quarter an inch of rainfall to get it activated and into the soil. So this has we've coined the catchphrase early is on time. So rather than waiting right to when you think the absolute last minute is, you can get that stuff out, hoping for a rain or hoping that you get it out before the weeds have emerged. This allows you a lot of flexibility to go 4 weeks, 6 weeks, sometimes even 8 weeks prior to when you think you need it. And the product's going to sit there and be ready for you, waiting on that quarter inch of rainfall. So that being the case, even a couple of small 1/10 of an inch showers can get you the amount of moisture that you need to get it in there. So a little bit about use rates. Again, we talk about the standard products that are used out there in pre-emergence and hay pastures right now, and those are typically used from 2 quarts all the way up to 4 quarts per acre. Resilon, again, not a yellow product, is a liquid actually, and it's only recommended to be used or labeled to be used for 3 to 5 ounces in a single application, no more than 6 ounces in a 12-month period. So in situations where weeds have emerged and maybe you're a little bit late for whatever reason, this time of year specifically, I've got people calling every day saying, I've got ryegrass emerging, what can I do? That's where you're going to want to add some type of post-emergent product like Roundup or Pasture or Cimarron Plus to take care of some of those post-emerged weeds or grasses, and then allow the Resilon. So specifically, if you're going after warm season annuals, we really recommend either 3 to 5 ounces of Resilon in January, February timeframe. Those type of grasses that you might be targeting include things like crabgrass, foxtails, sandbur, broadleaf signal grass, Dallas grass, goosegrass, things like that. So, and again, as we mentioned, you might want to include Roundup or Pasture for control of either weeds that have emerged or some of those perennial species that are already up out. Cool season annuals like ryegrass or little barley, even chickweed and henbit, you can go out in August or September, preferably after you've made one of your cuttings and you have plenty of time for that product to sit out there, and it'll do a good job of keeping those things out all winter long, so that when your hay grass comes out of dormancy after the first of the year sometime, it's ready to go and it's able to utilize all the moisture going to weeds. So we really recommend a program approach for season-long weed control. So if you want to keep your place clean year-round and you want to have good horse quality type hay, we really recommend going out like 3 ounces in January or February, and then following that up with 3 ounces in August or September to keep your place clean year-round. So this illustrates that a little bit. If you're going after summer annuals, things like crabgrass, sandbur, foxtails, get out there in January or first couple of weeks of February and get your 3 ounces out. If you have sandburs as a major problem, we're gonna actually back that second application up to about June, and that'll give you extended control of summer annuals, things like sandburs that tend to have a second time of year when they sprout, and it'll take care of those as well as the ryegrasses and things that come on later. If you're not worried about those, then you can push that application back a little bit to August or September and target those ryegrasses and other cool season annuals. So we talked a little bit about perennial or persistent weeds. There are some weeds out there that are perennial that you might mistake as an annual. If you see foxtails out there and you're spraying Resilon for foxtails and then wanting good control out of those things, if you see some that get missed, there's a pretty good chance that it's called knotroot foxtail. And if you dig it out, you'll see a cluster, a knot-like type root system underneath that thing. So knotroot foxtails resembles yellow foxtail in growth and seed head appearance, but has knotty rhizomes that are perennial. And we often also see with sandburrs, some of those things can actually overwinter. So if that's the case, probably not a bad idea to go out with some Pasture a little early in the season and take care of those that are trying to come up and from coming back. So a few features and benefits of Resilon. There's currently no grazing restrictions following an application. No harvesting restrictions for the 3-ounce rate. If you decide that you're going to do a 4 or 5 ounce rate and just make a single application, there is a harvest interval of about 40 days. But if you're going out and doing that and making your first cut until well after 40 days after the application, we do recommend using a broadcast or boom type nozzle and spraying system for this rather than a boomless sprayer, just to make sure that we get really good coverage out of that product and that you don't have an opportunity for those seeds to emerge. So a few other important considerations. There's an 18-month restriction on the planting of cool season grasses like ryegrass following an Resilon application because they quite frankly won't emerge. They're that sensitive to the product. So in addition, additives such as adjuvants, drift control agents can be used with Resilon, but you're just going to want to make sure you're using the correct mixing order. In addition, if you're using Roundup or some other post-emergent products, it's always a good idea to put the Resilon in first and then add those things after the fact. And as always, it's always a good idea to rotate products occasionally so that you don't develop resistance problems. So I'm going to go through a few quick slides here to just show you some examples of some weed control with Resilon, what you might expect out of this. So the first picture here, I believe, is ryegrass, and this is Resilon at 3 ounces compared to an industry standard at 4 quarts per acre, which is an exceptionally high rate. The application was made in the fall, the first week of October in 2017, and this was taking in March. And you can see there on the left that the Resilon plot is nice and clean, and then you can see the failures that we're seeing there in the industry standard. In crabgrass, very similar. Here we're looking at Resilon applied in February at 5 ounces compared to 2 quarts of the industry standard. And you can see we've got grass in there. That's actually what we want. That's our hay that we want to produce there. And in this one over here, you can pretty easily distinguish the lighter colored crabgrass that managed to escape that application. So a few other ones just to look at briefly. You can see this is foxtail results from LSU. The far left screen shows you an untreated, followed by the one in the middle there that's 3 ounces of Resilon. It looks almost like bare ground. But here, 167 days after treatment in March, you can see that nice and clean, and you can see the annual foxtails on either side of the red lines. So this is one that's near and dear to a lot of our hearts, one that we all hate, especially if your kids are walking around out there with no shoes on, and that's sandburr. So what we did here is we broke it up into about 3 different slides just to talk about it briefly. We see a sandburr incidence of about 31% in an untreated. And in the industry standard of 2 quarts per acre, we see a sandburr incidence of about 23%. So it did reduce the sandburr incidences by about a third. But when we compare that to Resilon at just 3 ounces per acre that was applied in February, when we went back in June, we only had 3.3% of that plot that had sandburrs in them. So as we wrap this up here, one of the last things that people are always concerned about is this going to hurt any of my established grasses that are out there? If you look across the bottom of that chart, you can see the untreated, and then go across at all the different Resilon rates, all the way up even to 15 ounces, which is a little over 2.5 times the maximum standard rate. And we didn't really have any effect whatsoever on yields of Bermuda grass or Bahia grass. So with that, I appreciate everybody that stuck with us through this and all the problems that we had. Again, we apologize for that. My last slide here is just contact information for our current range and pasture team. So please feel free to reach out to any one of us at any time if we can be of any assistance to you. And again, I want to thank producers for putting this on and allowing us to come talk about these exciting new products. And we hope that they find a fit for you in your either ranching or hay operation.
Hey, Rob, if you're still with us, I think we have one question here. If you can hear me, does Resilon require bare soil contact?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we hear
Okay,
you.
so the question is, does Resilon require bare soil contact? And no, the answer to that is it does not. Actually, in some of our roadside applications, we have what's going to be key, though, is leaving it out there and get it to the soil. Getting to 12 or 14 inches, you're going to be harvesting the application soon after you've done a cutting, and you've got maybe 4 to 6 inch stubble height, and then you can go out there and apply that stuff, and it'll have plenty of time for moisture to get on it and get down to the soil.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. I'm looking at the monitor just to double check. And okay, no, we sure don't. Thanks again, Rob. And we do apologize for little technical difficulties. If you think it was a little frustrating for you, you should have been here pushing the buttons with us. And so we apologize, but we'll do the best job we can to keep this thing moving on. We're going to close this session out. If there's any other questions, feel free to give us a call, our agronomy division. We can always reach out to Rob with those. I think he provided his contact information as well in that last slide. I didn't get to see it since I was preparing to come up here, but come pay us a visit at agronomy division, and we'll try to get your questions answered from there on these 2 exciting new herbicide options. Thanks again, Rob.